You're watching Notepad with me, Ibrahim Sani. You know what just happened is that about half an hour ago or 1 hour ago, I interviewed the former President of Timor-Leste, President Jose Ramos-Horta, and I didn't dismiss him from the studio just yet because it's very rare do we get a Nobel Laureate. It's even rare do we get a president in the studio. So right now, against his will, I am withholding him for this conversation. Mr. President, again, thanks for not running away from the studio. The earlier discussion that we had was mostly on diplomacy, mostly on ASEAN and the interrelationship that it has with the superpowers that be. And how we ended that conversation, rather abruptly if I may add, is that you were talking about the so-called pipe dream. What happens if, you know, the powers that be decide to not self-sabotage themselves and start to work together? And the countries that you chose were quite interesting. China, South Korea, Japan, maybe India. Do you think that there will be a utopian world where we can actually get all these guys to work together and perhaps achieve things that has never been dreamed of?
I wouldn't say impossible dream, but I look at the worrying and sad experience of Europe right now. Europe that was born as European Union 20 years ago, political union, no borders, literally single passport, single currency, now is almost unraveling. You have Chancellor Merkel, whom I met last year in July for 1 hour, the anchor of political leadership stability in Europe on the way out. You have President Macron, a young man with vision, but suddenly with the lowest popularity in the new republic. And then you have Italy, we all know. So very worrying for Europe. And I have the greatest respect for Europe, a continent that destroyed during World War II, then faced the Balkan Wars. And yet they reconcile and build this fantastic organization, the European Union. However, the bureaucracy in Brussels, layers and layers of privileges of bureaucracy, and somehow they disconnected from the people. In European Parliament elections, the participation of people in the election for European Parliament was, for a long time, very, very small. And that should already have sent a signal warning to the European leaders. So now they are facing a real crisis of confidence vis-à-vis the European Union as an institution. You have Asia as a great possibility, chance. And Asia has been primarily pulled forward by China's modernization, growth, has been pulled forward obviously by Japan, South Korea, has been pulled forward to some extent by ASEAN countries. And because when you look at the data of growth in the world, when you look at the reduction of the number of people, poor people in the world, well, it's obviously, it has to do with China, freeing 400 million people, 700 million people out of poverty. Now there are only 30 million people in China considered to be in poverty.
And not just that, I'm not talking about economic indicators. Women dying of childbirth, malnutrition among the young, age of expectancy of living. All these economic indicators were actually bumped up in general or in average because of China pushing it up.
Yeah.
So does this mean that, I hate to use the term because I used it just now in that previous show. Is this the century of China? And you commented it's actually the century of Asia. So we all know what's happening right now in the US. We all know only too well of the tribulations that are currently happening in Europe. But does Asia have it, you know, all intact and all together to get it done? Because it's very hard to see us working together,
you
honestly.
know, the irony of it all, India is a great democracy, but also chaotic. The federal system itself make it very difficult for laws, economic reforms, financial reform to properly approve and implemented in the states. However, it is commendable what India has achieved. Ironically, China, partly what it has achieved in the last 40 years since Deng Xiaoping launched the modernization, has to be the fact that it is a one-party system, political party, the Communist Party, super organized, going down to grassroots level, leaving very little to chance, and no compassion to tolerance to dissent. Because when you manage a country like more than 1 billion people, can you imagine if China were to follow India's democracy? You know, I would be scared.
It would be staggering.
So, ironically, it is this one-party system that has led the modernization of China and pull Asia, the rest of the world, ahead. It is also now absolutely necessary for China to understand that it has to really, it is up to China to reassure leaders in Asia, reassure ASEAN leaders, reassure others, because China is a superpower.
And people get nervous around them, of course.
Exactly. So,
naturally.
Exactly. So you are the one who have to really reassure people that you do not have a military expansionist designs.
But that's exactly what they're doing in South China Sea.
Exactly. So South China Sea is a major test for China. They are imposing essentially fait accompli. For instance, I would say in the case of Taiwan, it's indisputably China sovereign territory. And but when it comes to South China, very difficult for China to argue in the International Court of Justice or any international settlement mechanism that it has legal entitlement to the South China area.
Including the 9 dotted lines
Exactly.
and many.
But on the other, but China is not going to back down. But not will be Philippines. No one.
Brunei, Malaysia,
no
Vietnam.
one is going to back down. So, the challenge to the leaders of the region and to China, to Japan, test of their leadership is that knowing that no one politically is able to back down, to concede, then you negotiate a regime that maintaining their respective claims to the maritime boundaries, but at the same time, without demanding recognition from anyone. Everyone pretend I still have my claims. Then find a regional consensus for a joint management of the area that guarantee safe passage for trade, peaceful military passage that countries are entitled to, and then maybe leaving the fisheries, the resources underwater untouched.
Mr. President, we have discussed so much at length about the superpowers that be, but we still haven't touched on Dili and how Timor-Leste is going to navigate the 21st or 22nd century moving forward, because being the newest country of the 21st century, there is still so much to be had for your country. How do you think Timor-Leste is going to navigate these very troubled times in terms of nationalism, and how is the relationship going to be like with ASEAN?
One of the most successful steps we have taken in the course after independence was normalization of relations with Indonesia. Today, I can say there are no two countries in Asia, in all of Asia, that have a better relation than Timor-Leste and Indonesia.
And no one's going to dispute that.
Yeah, no
and
one.
it is very odd.
Yes,
so
exactly.
a person like me, because I was in high school when the rift happened, and of course the division has happened decades, if not centuries even before. What is the secret to a long, happiness?
Both sides, the Timorese side, that you can say the aggrieved party, the victim party, did not seek international tribunals to try crimes of the past. We did not seek revenge against our domestic opponents, those who sided with Indonesia. We understood Indonesia's delicate, complex transition to democracy from the Suharto era. So we did not think it would be proper, fair on our part to introduce another complex element to Indonesia as they were facing this difficult transition to democracy. We resisted pressures in the UN, even Washington, Europe, to set up an international tribunal on Indonesia because of crimes. We said no. Past is past. We want to look forward. We bury the dead. We honor our heroes. We look after those who are alive. But that's our responsibility. Indonesians, they will take care of justice in their own country whenever they are ready. And the Indonesian side appreciated it. They never expected Timor to be so looking forward. And they have turned around and extend a hand of friendship. Indonesia has been one of the most important advocates of Timor joining ASEAN.
And to speak of more of that, Indonesia has been instrumental in terms of supporting the creation of the institutions of Timor-Leste. Anywhere from the National Police to the Central Bank, everything has been created with the help of many partners.
Yes.
But Indonesia has been instrumental.
Yes, Indonesia has been, we have thousands of students in Indonesia right now. At least officially, the numbers are 4,000 Timorese students in Indonesia. And we have thousands of Indonesians living, working in Timor-Leste, absolutely in tranquility. But let me say, one reason why I came to Malaysia this time, I spoke with our Prime Minister, a former guerrilla fighter, former president also, Taul Matarua, for almost 2 hours. And I said, I'm coming to Malaysia. And we discussed how important it is to have Malaysia embracing Timor-Leste as its favorite priority partner to help Timor-Leste transform. Within 10-20 years, Malaysia can do it. We are only 1 million. We have our own resources. We have oil, gas, we have some cash. What we miss a lot is human resources, know-how to do planning, execute. And Malaysia has done all of that. So I came I had a very good conversation with Anwar Ibrahim, extended an invitation to him to visit Timor-Leste whenever he can. He readily accepted. I hope to see Dr. Mahathir. Anwar is also going to talk to Dr. Mahathir to also extend the invitation from our Prime Minister for Dr. Mahathir to visit. When they come, when Dr. Mahathir comes to Timor-Leste, I hope he can. I understand he's extremely busy. We would like to present to Malaysia and discuss with Malaysia a comprehensive proposal, document a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year program whereby Malaysia would invest heavily, and it doesn't have to be, when I say invest heavily, it doesn't mean to be financial. Technical advice, planning, but also Malaysian private sector, investors to come to Timor-Leste. Yes, Dr. Mahathir, Anwar Ibrahim, Malaysia can go enter into history and say, we are the ones who really helped modernize in Timor-Leste into a viable, vibrant economy, prosperous country, lifting this brotherly country, poor country, from poverty.
And this has been the conversation that is currently happening right now in the internal circles of this current administration in terms of how best to redefine Malaysia's relationships with our neighbors, be it from China all the way to Timor-Leste. And the conversation has always, again, snarled on our domestic policies in terms of succession planning. We can't get enough of the rumors and the speculation that that is currently happening between the leadership of this current administration. And of course, the leadership of the parties are saying there's no rift, there's no conflict, everything is as per discussed, the succession plan will take place, all this is taking place. But yet, domestically, we still can't get enough in terms of arguing this. But do you think that these are merely noise in terms of how we manage internally, or is there something serious to it? Because it does impact our multilateral relationships with many countries, including that of Timor-Leste.
Well, I don't know of any democracy where you don't have this kind of conversation, of debate, of speculation.
Or include shouting as well in terms of...
Yeah, if Malaysia were to be like China or North Korea, there'll be not much speculation. So Malaysia, like Timor-Leste, we show democracy. Well, it has these consequences. You have freedom of press, social media, you have millions of individuals, everyone wants to give an opinion, everyone speculate. So it's up to the leaders are the ones who have to dissect information, they have the ones who keep cool head, they have to understand that staying together, compromise, trusting each other, and as I said earlier in a conversation, dialogue, dialogue, and dialogue to dissipate rumors. Because when you don't engage in dialogue, rumors become like truth, facts. And you suspect the other side. So you start preparing to take action. And you suspect, so you decide to preempt, take action again.
Yeah, of course.
When the other side actually was not doing anything.
And so you build on this, you know, this notion or this narrative that is something that is fake or something that is not real, but you're building something onto it.
Yeah, so if leaders, they talk to each other, they know. All are rumors, there's nothing to it, and so on.
Prior to us having this interview, back in the interview room, in the makeup room, all the way here before the camera started rolling, you were talking again and again about the concept of consistency, of predictability, the concept of stability, balance. These are the things that, the adjectives that you used before we started the interview. When we talk about diplomacy, I, again, took this for granted because right now we see a lot of unpredictability happening around the world, anywhere from Washington to small countries. Do you think that Malaysia and at least Timor-Leste has the predictability to be, balanced and stable in terms of our relationship with each other, and perhaps this could be translated into ASEAN relationship and the multilateral relationship that we have in this region?
For all the challenges and problems that ASEAN still face and individual countries still face, ASEAN has gained tremendous international reputation. there has not been any major conflict between ASEAN countries. There have been some differences of approach, South China Sea, on the Rohingya question in Myanmar, at a vote at the UN General Assembly. Malaysia, Indonesia, Brunei voted differently from other countries. Other countries view the problems in Myanmar, particularly the Rohingya, differently from Malaysia. So that's a challenge for ASEAN leaders to have a common view, common position. Or you might not have common view, but even without common view, the challenge to leadership is that you have to work out a common position to address the problem in Myanmar. And that requires cool heads, require predictability, and predictability is a quality of leaders, is that people know that such and such leaders, such and such country are not unreliable, they are not unstable. Like for instance, right now, the whole world is guessing what Donald Trump is going to do next. And this is not just a pure speculation. He has done a lot of harm to Europe. He has done a lot of harm to the European Union.
And undermining all the institutions that come along with it.
Yeah, the institutions that were loyal pillars in the alliance, Europe and US. Undermining NATO, undermining the European Union, instigating Brexit, and all of that. And in the midst of all of this, that I would say ASEAN must stick together, must address the problem within ASEAN. Like we in Timor-Leste, we know we are minor in the region, and our primary responsibility to our people is to unify our country, our people, stay stable. We resolve ongoing problems.
But the key pillar to ASEAN is the non-intervention policy. Do you think that has to be thrown out of the window?
No, I wouldn't say that. Non-interference, non-intervention is something. Another is when you are dealing with a situation like in Myanmar. It is this responsibility of the Myanmar authorities, or Suu Kyi, the military, to find ways to address the multiple problems there, because the problems were not made up by Suu Kyi. She's demonized by everybody, and everybody forget that she inherited problems from 50 years. And everybody ignored the fact that she doesn't have a real power. The power rests on the military. So instead of demonizing her, they should, but she also has to ask for help from ASEAN countries. Indonesia, for instance, could provide tremendous expertise. Indonesia came out of a dictatorship, resolved the problems of Aceh, resolved the problems of Kalimantan, Ambon, and so they know how to. So Indonesia could be more active, but to be more active in Myanmar, it has to be solicited.
Yes, because in order for you to solicit help, you have to realize you're in trouble first.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. President, that has been a fantastic conversation. If you want to continue to watch these kind of interviews, just head on to Astro Awani and search for either Agenda Awani or my show, Nota Ibrahim Sani. Once again, Mr. President, thank you very much. I've been speaking to President Jose Ramos-Horta, the former President of Timor-Leste. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.